Hello and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, and you have found the place where we talk about estate planning, elder law, real estate, and business law, plus whatever else you feel like talking about. And I tend to think that pretty much everything, my weakness affects real estate, business law, estate planning, and elder law. So kind of a free-for-all, if you will. We're talking, what is going on with inflation right now? And it's more particular, like the government. I just saw this the other day. I kind of look at, when you watch the news, you can't listen to what they say because you know that they're trying to sell you something. I mean, isn't that obvious? I don't care who you listen to. They got a perspective. They got a way of, they're trying to tell you something, and they're trying to sell you something is what they're trying to do. The way they write about what happened on January 6th, right? The way all this politics stuff. I mean, it's obvious. There's no neutral. There's no. Well, I'll give you an example. The head of some professor who got elected to be the president of the historical whatever it was, scholars and what have you, and he put out, like, this just happened. This just happened like last week, and he put out a piece, said. Something about is history, meaning is the way that historians have always recorded things, is that a thing of the past now? Is it over? The idea that there is objective knowledge, that there's ways to figure out. When I was in high school, the high school history teacher who gave the course that everyone in the high school had to take, and he did it in the auditorium, right? Because every sophomore had to go through this course. And what he said about history has always stuck with me. What he said about history is it's not about themes. It's not about emotions. It's not about feelings. History is who was the person? When did it happen? And where did it happen? Okay? The rest is something else. The rest is a sales pitch. Okay? So when he went back to the American Revolution, he made it real because he talked about individual men and women who did things on a certain day at a certain time, and then somebody else did something else, and then somebody else did something else, and that's what history is. So this guy writes an article about that, and he's a classical guy. Obviously he's president of all the historians, right? Or some of them are professors or something like this, and you Google it and find out. Anyway, the point is, within 24 hours, he's apologizing for it. He retracted everything he said. Can you imagine what happened to this guy? The storm that broke on his head when he said that grievances and feelings and all the rest of were more didn't matter. Right. When he tried to go back to what happened, who did it, who did they do it to, what was the consequence thing was, then this other thing happened at this particular date and time. The whole idea of recording things that happen one after the other, and now it's all a mishmash. You don't even know. So you think, well, the history books, when they write the history, this will be different, and everybody knows that the first draft of history is always wrong. Okay. I mean, back in the day, everyone thought FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was saving the country with the Civilian Conservation Corps and the price control boards and all the rest. Now they look back on it. The Depression would have been over 10 years earlier if he just left things alone. If he had just let people do what people do, right? All the stuff that he did, right, just made it worse for everybody. And you got historians, though, who recorded what happened, when it happened, who did it, what happened next, and all the rest. And that historical record is available now to go back and look and see, hey, wait a second. They thought they were doing this and they were doing that. The Works Progress Administration, Civilian Conservation Corps, all these government programs that was, the alphabet soup that they talked about of agencies that never existed before till the Great Depression. And then, of course, never let a disaster go unused. Always take advantage of a catastrophe, that kind of idea. Well, that's why we have the federal government the way we have it. That's what expanded it. And then, of course, Second World War, right? We got more of it. And here we are. So this idea that history is really about grievance, where in the future, will they be able to go back and say, hey, that $750 billion that we can't figure out what they spent it on, but the jacked prices skyrocketed, that devastated the middle class, that turned out to be a bad thing. Will the historians be able to, will there be even a historical record that will allow that? That's what this guy's raising. That's the issue. And of course, for that, he's like, and he wrote this absolute abject, on your knees, it's all my fault, I'm an idiot. Really, I mean, this is the guy who's at the very top of the profession that everyone else recognizes as a super duper historian. Well, now he's got to apologize for everything because he offended the wrong people. Can you say cancel culture, which of course doesn't exist? Just ask anybody. It doesn't exist. And the worst part about this, see, here's the thing. If we're going to spend $750 billion, right, I want something to show for it. All right. So as I said in the first segment, for $750 billion, we should get 75, not one or two or three. We should get 75 brand spanking new, no urinals in the thing, super duper high technology aircraft carriers. Where's my 75 aircraft carriers? All right. Or no, wait a second. We got to have some planes on them. So just give me 50 aircraft carriers and use the other $250 billion to buy the airplanes. How about that? Are you going to see 50 aircraft? Of course not. Are you going to see $750 billion worth of bridges? No, you're not. Where's this money going to go? The answer is you have no idea. And frankly, neither do I. But the people who voted for it, they're all smiles and chuckles. They're all laughing. Why are they laughing? Who are they laughing at? It's like that Clint Eastwood movie, where the bad guys are laughing. And Clint's like, my mule, I'm not offended. I know you guys didn't mean it, but my mule, he's offended. He just doesn't understand. And then, of course, he guns down 5 guys. Clint Eastwood does. Well, we're not going to gun anybody down. And I don't want to hear anything about that. But, who are they laughing at? I think they're laughing at you because you are the one paying the bill and you're not getting any return for it. And why aren't you getting any return for it? You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm still David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Yeah, that hasn't changed. First, before I forget, we had our 6th annual Classic Car Drive-In. That was last Friday at the Grand Rapids location. Over 500 people. They passed out over 600 from Comstock Park. You've got that Mad Dogs over there, and so they catered the event, and it was over 600. I forget how many, but it was over 600 hot dogs. So some people didn't get 2, I guess. But we had over 80 cars were there, and I want to apologize because we ran out of the voting credential or whatever, and the folks at the gate turned away some cars, and it's like, what? We got plenty of parking spaces. We'll find some, But so I want to apologize to anybody who tried to bring your Classic in there, and we're told that there was no room at the inn. Do it again next year. Don't worry about showing up. Whenever you show up, we'll get you. We will get you in. Heads have rolled and instructions have been modified. So don't worry about that going forward. But anyway, it was a grand time was had by all, and that's something we do every year, in addition to all the other stuff that we do every year. And speaking of things that people do, give us a call, 616-774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424. If you want to see some pictures of that, of the classic car, there's a fellow who goes around to all these car shows and events and stuff. He's sort of a freelance guy. I guess he's taking pictures. And so he links to his Facebook. It's on the Facebook page somehow or other. You can link to his website from our website or something. Just look up David Carrier on the Facebook. And I know it's a limb of Satan. It's it's an evil thing, but a lot of people seem to like that Facebook thing. And so there's pictures on the website. There's a little bit of video on the website. But this other guy, he took a whole bunch of pictures, and we'll be putting more car show stuff on the website. Okay, I guess the website too, but on the Facebook thing. And frankly, I don't really know how to get to it. But apparently, if you search David Carrier or David Carrier Law, you can find it. You can find it that way. So I am told. But if you have a question, comment, or concern about something other than Facebook, because I don't really know anything about that, but give us a call. We're talking about this Inflation Reduction Act, which, as they say, is 3 lies for the price of one. Number one, the only thing it's going to do is increase inflation. I don't know what the other 2 lies are, but anyway, it's everybody just sort of goes along now with, oh yeah, we're going to spend $750 billion for what? And nobody can really tell you. Now they're trying to turn it into a climate change bill. Okay, we're going to take $750 billion and we're going to pay it to the little kids overseas who go traipsing around in these mines to get the cobalt and the other the other minerals that you need to do photovoltaic cells and stuff like that. The kids who are being poisoned. Okay, fine, I guess. Let's put some money towards some kiddie slave labor. That's a good idea. So we can put egg beaters out on the landscape, which chop up golden eagles and bald eagles and everything else. Yeah, let's do that. Fine. Sounds like a great idea to me. But what do you get for your $750 billion? I look at as I said before, I look at the newest Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, which is now after, and listen, everyone wants to complain. Oh, it's taking forever. Oh, it's horrible. Hey, listen, they tried all kinds of new stuff in that ship. And the fact that it floats at all is a miracle. And now it's going to live up to the promise. It always takes more money. Everybody we all understand that. And then the other 3 that they're building them in blocks of 3 to save money. They'll save $1 billion here and there. It's like, what do you mean save $1 billion? What do we care about $1 billion? Because it only costs you, I think it was $13.3 billion, because the Ford is the first one off the line, right? So you got to pay all the extra money, development costs and whatnot on that. But making the rest of them shouldn't be more than $10 billion each. Well, Elon Musk, I guess, could afford a couple of them, right? Why not? That's all. It's pretty cheap, $10 billion, pocket change. But we're spending $750 billion on what no one can tell you. Why shouldn't we have 75 state-of-the-art, nuclear-powered, atomic, whatever, aircraft carriers sitting around rusting away? They're doing nothing because there's nothing for that many aircraft. Or like I said, get 50. And I bet you if you put the other $250 billion into development, we'd have flying saucers and stuff that could fly off those things. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be just the F-35. Oh, it's so expensive. F-35 is an expensive aircraft, right? It's what, $20 million each? How many thousands of those things could you build for $750 billion? At least you'd have something to show for it, right? Or maybe we should build bridges with it. How many Golden Gate bridges? I haven't done the calculation, but how many Golden Gate bridges could we get for $750 billion? Okay, here's my point. We just spent $750 billion on God knows what, right? And in fact, it was you, the middle class, who's doing it, because the rich people are too smart to pay their taxes. The folks at the other end of the economic spectrum, as they say, don't have the money to pay the taxes. It's only you. You're the one they're counting on, because you've got trillions, literally trillions, locked up in your 401k. We can count on you to die and leave that to your kids, and then they're going to pay 40% income tax on it. Income tax, because they won't be smart enough to spread it out. They'll just pull it out all at once, and then they'll get their 40 to, in some states it's more, 40-50% income tax off it, and that will solve all of our problems. Right? That's the way I think that's the way they're thinking about it. But here's what, so understand that's how the game is played. It's always been played, at least in our living memory. So here's the thing I don't get, the conundrum. A big part of what I'm doing, have done for 32 years, right, is help regular folks get what they paid for. Okay. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And there'll be Paradise by the Dashboard Light. That's right. Anyway, we were talking with Joy before the break. Joy's situation is not an uncommon one. In this case, it's her sister, father's another father's daughter, second mother, but second spouse. And anyway, now mom and her stepmom and her father have now moved in with the sister, and sister's restricting access to the to mom or dad. I mean, that is not uncommon, and it's not really a stepchild situation or half sister situation. It happens all the time. So the question is, what do you do about it? And the answer is, when you have someone who's competent, they get to decide who they visit with, and you have to, you can't isolate them like that. Now, it does happen, and so there's a big misconception, I think, with regard to when someone has power of attorney, or is the trustee, or is a court-appointed guardian or conservator. All the family frequently feels like they should have input into the decision-making process. Well, that's more true when you have a guardian and conservator, because everything needs to be reported to the court, right? That you have to go to court and lay it all out anyway. So, there's a little bit less, obviously quite a bit less, no privacy when you're going through the guardianship conservatorship process in probate court. This is why I think it's so important for folks to do their healthcare power of attorney, do their financial power of attorney, do the planning, so it doesn't become, National Enquirer time, what's going on, where everything is out there and public and everything else. And then you've got family members who are caring for family members who get replaced with public guardians. That's a happening thing. And frankly, if you're the judge, right, and there's money involved and everything else, the cases that you're typically seeing are exploitive cases where somebody is taking advantage of the person who is of diminished capacity. Very common. Also common is when you see a case where, until they know until money's involved, they're all fine with the family member being the guardian or the you don't even bother with the conservator because no money involved. But once money's involved, oh my goodness, then we need a public guardian and conservator, and we've got to put all these restrictions in place. And you can understand where they're coming from. Very easy to understand where they're coming from, because they have seen, and this is what law enforcement people, whether it's adult protective services, detective, judges, everybody, they're used to people getting exploited. That's what they see all day. Now, the fact of the matter is they're only looking at the tip of the iceberg, and that's not usually what's going on with families. Usually what the kids are I've heard it so often. It's, I could go through it in my sleep when people come in and it's like, look, we don't want mom's money. We don't care about mom's money. It's not about mom's money. It's about making sure mom gets the best care. It's about making sure that, the last days of her life, last weeks, last years, months, whatever it is, they save this money. We don't want it. It's all a matter of, how do we get the best care? Okay, well, there are ways to get the best care. I feel the best care, and prudently manage the finances. That's kind of what I do all day. But when you're in one of the official world, right, the cases that you see are not those cases, right? And when you hear that stuff, I don't think they believe them. I believe them because I've seen it. I mean, that's the vast majority of folks I'm dealing with, 90+%, 95%, whatever it is. Very unusual for us to be working with a family where you get the sense that, they're really after mom's money. Okay. Our prejudice, if you will, our bias, our preconceived notion, and everybody's got them. Our preconceived notion is that the kids are doing the best for mom and dad, for best for the parents that they can, because that's what I see all day. Now, that's not to that's not to say that we're not that we're not sniffing around. Is there a problem here? Is something off? Right? Because when you're used to dealing with people who are honest and forthright and forthcoming and everything else, right? When people aren't that way, they say things a little bit differently. They do things a little bit differently. Okay. And you can, after a while, you can pick up on it. It's not really, they say the right things, but that's not really what's going on. And, I work with attorneys who are more suspicious than I am about that kind of thing. So, but the court looks at it differently. Okay. The courts look at it differently. And in a case like this, right, that is to your benefit, because number one, you're not supposed to, as the agent, as the guardian, as the conservator, whatever, it's your job to make those decisions, not to convene a convocation or convoke a convention or, whatever, have a cavalcade of opinions. No, that's not the idea. You're there to make those decisions. So you make those decisions, right? You're not there to isolate the parent from the other family members. You're not there, right, to be super secretive. You're not there to make things difficult for everybody, okay? And some people do exploit the authority that they get under a power of attorney or guardianship or what have you, sort of like what's going on here. So the way you deal with that, the first call you would make is as you did to the family member. You try to talk to all the family members, work things out. If you can't work things out, next call is to Adult Protective Services. And you say, look, my sister has power of attorney, has guardianship, what have you, is isolating mom or dad, won't let us talk to them. We don't know what's going on. They do want to talk to us, et cetera, et cetera. Then APS will send someone over, right, and find out what's going on. Is there a neglect situation? Is there a exploitation situation? Something like that going on. In the last extreme, and these are really great people with APS. They do a super job. Love them. They've seen it all, right? And they can tell, what's going to a large extent, although they tend to be on the enforcement side. They can tell what's going on. And so lots of times that's all it takes to open things up a little bit. Worst case scenario, Joy's going to have to go to probate court and say, dad's being isolated. I need a court order so I can get in there and see him. So there are things that can be done. Obviously, working it out informally is the best, then Adult Protective Services, and then finally petitioning the probate court to impose a guardianship to enable visitation. That's kind of the hierarchy. That's the way we go at these things. Okay. But when everyone cooperates, man, it's one sweet song. When they don't, well, sometimes you got to be the hard guy. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Hello and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, and this is the time, this is the place, you found it, for you to give us a call, 616-774-2424, 616-774-2424. If you give that number a ringle jingle there, and we'll get your question, comment, or concern on the air. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who brought out your classic cars last Friday. This was our 6th annual classic car cruise-in. We don't call it a car show because we don't, we have popular vote, and we awarded the top three places. And for the first time in years, the 1958 Aqua Bel Air was dethroned, and a new winner in 1959 Ford was crowned king of the belle of the ball, queen of the May, king of the whoop, whatever. And then it was a 56. It was a 56, 1956, but it was a Pontiac instead of a Chevy, which would have been my preference. And then we had a 29 Mercedes-Benz replica. Anyway, so thank you to everybody. We had 500-600 folks showed up. Went through lots and lots of mad dogs out of Comstock Park. Thank you very much, the folks at at Mad Dog doing a fabulous job dishing out the dogs and all their creative varieties. That's right. You think, well, what can you do with a hot dog, right? Well, absolutely. Go to Mad Dogs in Comstock Park and you'll find out there are many, many things you can do with a hot dog that are not only creative, but delicious as well. So thanks for everybody who came out. It was a fine time was had. Fine time was had by all. Okay, what else we got going? They recently passed this. Well, they were going to spend trillions of dollars again, and instead they only spent billions, $750 billion. And it got me thinking. Obviously, we don't care where the money comes from anymore. That doesn't matter apparently. But you think about. If you go to the grocery store, and nowadays, of course, it costs $80 to buy a jug of milk and a loaf of bread, but, at least you got a jug of milk and a loaf of bread. You got something. Who knows? Maybe even a can of sardines. You never know for your $80. Inflation being what it is. But what does the government get for its money? They spend $750 billion with a B dollars. And it just struck me that this new aircraft carrier that everyone's complaining about how expensive it is like $13 billion. A mere $13 billion. And everybody's all worried. Oh, so expensive. Well, listen, if you took that $750 billion, which they almost didn't spend. See, this is the thing that absolutely blows my mind. Okay? We're not talking about $750 billion with a B dollars, $billion, $750 billion. This is not for roads. This is not for the usual things that government, sticks its snout in the trough for. This is not for judges. This is not for police. This is not for military. This is not for any of that stuff. What's it for? Who knows? Who knows? You can't read the thing. Nobody can read the thing. Nobody knows what's going on with it. It's just COVID. Do you remember back in the day? Some of you guys are old enough to remember when everything was a computer error. Anything went wrong. Bad weather. Oh, computer error. Back when computers were mysterious and stuff. And now they're still trying to pull that same old crap with COVID. Oh, it's COVID. What? What? It has to do with filling the trough so the pigs can put their snout in it. That's what it has to do with 100%. Right? And you don't even know where, at least with hogs, and I had hogs for, I had several years I was raising the hogs. You know what I mean? Well, something, at the end of filling the trough, you got hogs, right? And then pretty soon you got bacon and ham and other delicious things, sausage and what have you, okay? Same way with steers, you feed them. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt to go to the feed, go to the elevator, fill up your grain wagon and show up at 5:30 every morning, filling the bunker with the chopped corn and everything else. Put out their selenium block. Fill the water trough. You got to do that year round. It's kind of a pain. You don't like doing it so much. You get used to it. Actually, it becomes kind of fun. But anyway, point being, at the end of the day, right? You buy the grain, the hog feed, whatever it is, right? You do the work, and you wind up with steak and hamburger and chops and other stuff. Okay, what do you get for your $750 billion? Nothing. Nothing you can think of, right? I mean, what? Oh, it's for the climate. Oh, it's to reduce inflation. What a total lie. You know what I mean? See, if you're going to lie to me, at least lie to me in a way where I can try to believe it, right? But they're saying, oh, after we dumped all those trillions of dollars in the economy and now we have uncontrolled inflation, right? Well, that didn't have anything, one doesn't have anything to do with the other, which is obvious nonsense, right? You can't believe that. I mean, we dump all this trillions of dollars in the economy, inflation goes nuts. We restrict exploration and development of oil, the gas prices go up. Okay, I mean, is there any surprise here? And then everyone's like, oh, yeah, but now gas prices are going down. Is that because there's more supply? No, it isn't. You know why? You know why gas prices are going down? I'll tell you why. And you can find out. Don't believe me. See, I hate it when people believe me. Don't believe me. Don't say, oh, Dave Carrier said it. It must be true. Don't do that. Go to the federal government's information. All right? It's on the way. All this information, I mean, among other things, they pay for a lot of statistics, and you can get them. The Petroleum Information, what is it? PIA, I think is what they call it. It's a federal agency, and it tells you what's going on with the markets and oil and stuff like that. We're using less gasoline. Just say gasoline. We're using less gasoline now than we were in July and August of 2020. Less gasoline. Do you remember 2020? Pandemic. Nobody's moving out of the house, right? And you look around, you say, well, there's lots of cars on the road. I see a lot of cars. I didn't see any cars then, but I see a lot of cars now. Yeah, but you know what? Back then, people, it was a matter of people going to work and this and that, kind of background stuff, right? Well, people aren't traveling. They're using less gas now. Because they're using less gas, the price goes down. Supply, demand, when demand goes down and supply stays the same, right, then the price goes down. That's what's going on. Because why? Because we're in a recession, believe it or not. Believe it or not, we're in a recession. Hello. We had a bounce in the stock market for the last few weeks. It's what they call a dead cat bounce. Drop a dead cat from high enough, it'll bounce. Well, that's what you got. Bull market bounce. Bear market bounce is what they. And don't believe me on anything when it comes to economics either. I don't know jack about that. Now, there are some things I do know stuff about, which I'll be happy to share. But I don't know anything about economics. I don't know anything about. But it seems to me that if we're going to spend $75 billion, we should have something to show for it, right? I mean, why don't we have some new bridges or something? How about some bridges? And I'm harping on this, and I don't apologize. I don't apologize for anything, but sort of apologize for it. But that new aircraft carrier, it's named after aircraft carriers, right? So that's why I like them. But anyway, the new one, the Gerald R. Ford, again, from Hometown Boy Made Good, right? The Gerald R. Ford class of aircraft carriers, it's going to cost about $10 billion each. And the first one was more expensive because they had to do all that new technology and crap, which is what always happens. Nothing new about it, right? It always happens. They got that going on, the new technology and stuff, and it never works until it works. And then everybody forgets that it didn't work, and okay, fine. But that cost call it $15 billion. It was less than that. But call it $15 billion, right? And then the follow-on aircraft carriers are $10 billion each. Once you make the first one, it's easier to make the other ones. Okay, it's cheaper. Makes sense? They order them 3 at a time now, not 1 at a time. So that makes it cheaper too. Oh, good stewards of our money. So if an aircraft carrier costs $10 billion, and we've got $750 billion lying around that we can spend on God knows what, why don't we just buy aircraft carriers with it? Wouldn't it be fun if there were 75 absolutely gigantic, biggest ship in the world ever, fastest ship in the world ever, more aircraft, blah, 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 right? Why don't we buy 75 of those things, all right? You could do air shows off them. And in fact, I wouldn't even demand 75. Let's go with 50, and we can use the other $250 billion to buy airplanes and flying saucers and hot air balloons, give rides and stuff. And you could go surf, you could go water skiing behind them. They're really fast, 35 miles an hour. Hey, why not? Instead, we got $750 billion. It's just going to make everything cost more and make the politicians happy, I guess. Think about that. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Wishing I had my own aircraft carrier, which I don't. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm still David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, and you can still give us a call, 774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424. And don't complain that it's a long distance call, because long distance doesn't exist anymore. We all know that. Anyway, give us a call, 616-774-2424, whether you're in Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, or any of the other fine stations that carry this show live. Now, I got a text back here saying that, if they built 75 aircraft carriers, we would run out of money. We'd run out of names to name the ships after. And so, in the interest of solving that problem, I would like to point out that I have an uncle, now deceased. He's at Arlington. And he was a PT boat captain during World War II. That's where he started. And he stayed in the Navy, and he was Captain Alphonse Carrier. And, they made him a Commodore from time to time. And so he was head of the Destroyer Force Atlantic and this and that. He did all kinds of stuff. Interesting character. So you could name the ship after him. Plus, when I was a captain myself. Now I was Army, and I was a JAG captain, but it still counts. And my son, also Captain Carrier, you see? So you kind of get three for the price of one. If you named one of those aircraft carriers the Captain Carrier, it would be my uncle, myself, and my son. See? Multi-generational, tradition, all the rest of that stuff. Yeah, that'd be great. So that's why I think we should buy 75 more or 50 more if you want. And you have 250 billion left over for politicians' projects. Anyway, given the way that the money is spent, and you would hope that they're good stewards. They're not. You would hope that it was done for the commonwealth, for the common good, and it isn't. Here's what. And people say to me, oh, you're against government spending, and yet you're telling people how to qualify for benefits. And it's like, yeah, right. It's a rigged game, okay? If you've got the gold, you make the rules. That's true. And who's paying for it all? You are. Middle class is paying for it all. This is very, very simple, okay? Very simple. You got wealthy people who don't pay very much in the way of taxes. I'm not talking about high-income people who are working. I count those people as middle-class people, okay? If you're high income and you're working your butt off and you're putting in all the overtime and you're doing all that kind of stuff and you're paying ridiculous income tax on it, right, which you are, okay, I get that. I understand. You're working hard and you're paying extra income tax. I'm not counting you, because if you quit your job, there it goes. I'm talking about the billions of dollars, the Warren Buffetts of the world, okay? The people in Silicon Valley who don't seem to care that, what is the Los Angeles income tax rate, like 13%, or California? I don't know, whatever. It's ridiculous. Why is California the most solvent state? Because it sucks wealth out of the entire rest of the country, right? Because they have very high taxes, and when the Silicon Valley guys go public, they cash in on that. I mean, that's what's going on. Very simple. It's mostly a paper shuffle exercise, and the work's getting done in China. I don't know. I don't think this is controversial stuff. I mean, that's what's going on. They're like, oh, those lousy red states, they're getting the money, and we're the ones producing. It's like, wait a second, no, you're sucking it out of the reds. That's what's going on. Just look at the numbers. Anyway, I digress. So when people say to me, ooh, you're trying to get government benefits, I say, you darn tootin' I am, because the rich people who benefit the most aren't paying the income tax. They're not paying the taxes, right? And the people at the other end of the spectrum, at the other end of the socioeconomic spectrum, right? They're getting it for free. Whatever. It's the people in the middle. It's the people who go to church on Sunday. It's the people who, or mosque on Saturday, or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's those folks, the faithful people, the people who actually, show up in the morning and do their job and do the good thing and all the rest of it. It's your tax dollars at work. And what absolutely grinds me so much is that the people who pay in are also the last ones to get any benefit out of it. The last ones. Okay? And all I'm trying to do is redress the balance a little bit. That's all. That's all. Why should you go broke in long-term care? Why? Explain that to me. Okay, you don't go broke with Social Security. Everybody gets Social Security, right? You paid in. Tax money goes into Social Security, in case you didn't know it, because they didn't save that money. They spent it as soon as they got it. It's general tax revenues that are supporting Social Security. Simple as that. I mean, that's how it works. Same way with Medicare. Do you pay in? You're darn right you pay in. You're darn right you pay in the premiums and all the rest, but it's also tax dollars. It's not just an insurance program. It's taxpayer-supported insurance program. It's what it is. Okay? So, You don't go broke with Social Security. You know, it's not like you have to show up and say, oh, my 401k is all gone. Now please give me some Social Security, right? With Medicare, you don't go in and say, oh, I'm broke now. Now you can pay for my bypass. You know, how about a knee replacement now that I sold my cottage and got rid of everything, right? You don't have to do that. Why do you have to do that when it comes to long-term care? Why? I think there's a pretty obvious reason. It's because by the time you need long-term care, you've only got a couple of years left. 70% of people have 3 years of skilled care, 20% 5 years or more. But in any event, you're not a reliable voting bloc at that point, right? People aren't aware of it. People put it off. Whereas with Social Security and Medicare, you got 20 years to vote. So they're worried about you. They're not worried about you when you're on long-term care, right? At that point, they just assume pick your pocket, go through the couch looking for loose change, right? That's what they're doing. See ya. It's a political, I think, and this is just an observation. I didn't talk to anybody and they told me this. Just look at it. Isn't it obvious? That's what's going on. All I'm trying to do is redress the balance a little. All I'm trying to do is say, hey, if we paid in and we didn't blow it all at the casino or the whatever, we didn't just spend the money as soon as we got it, why are we punishing responsible behavior? If you're responsible, if you save for the rainy day, if you put it away, if you do the good thing, right? So you can pay your taxes and buy all those aircraft carriers and every other damn thing they want to spend the money on, the $750 billion, right? Why should you go broke at that point? Why should you go broke in your moment of need? It doesn't make any sense to me. And what really doesn't make any sense to me is why the people, right, who have been taken advantage of right along, right, don't say, yeah, how about a little payback? I paid in. Why is it so bad that I should take out? Why shouldn't I get a little bit of return on my tax dollars? I want you to think about that. What's the moral objection? Pay in, get out. Do one thing, get the other thing. I mean, what's so action reaction? What's so bad about it? I'd like to know. Give me a call, 616-774-2424. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm still David Carrier, and this is still the David Carrier Show, where we answer your questions about estate planning, elder law, real estate, and business law. And since that pretty much comprehends the entire universe of useful knowledge. Well, there you go. Anything else, we'll talk about it. The relationship between people and government and all the rest is sort of what, is the fix in? Yeah, to some extent it is. I mean, how many ex-presidents have had their homes raided? I mean, come on. And for what? They had nuclear weapon technology in the wife's underwear drawer. I mean, come on. Does anybody believe that? I mean, is that, I don't know. I think that's kind of a Rorschach test. You know what I mean? If you look at that and you think, well, yeah, of course, that's how it's done. And then you look at everything else that's gone on in the last several years and okay. I mean, how you react to that, it seems to me, tells a lot about perspective and what you think is important, what you think is not important, and all the rest. It's as I say, one of those events. I think it's a defining thing. If you think that this is what Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. was doing every Sunday night on the FBI, let me suggest that it is not. It's a little bit different. But anyway, that's part of our relationship to government. Another part of relationship to government is we expect government to provide benefits because we pay in. And the question is, what is your relationship? Because we've got so many folks who are used to paying in and not used to getting back that it really gets in the way of realizing your legacy. It really gets in the way. So it's pretty easy when we're working with a family that's already spent their life savings to convince them that hanging on to the last 2 nickels and get on Medicaid, that's an easy, I guess I deserve it because I'm broke and I have no alternative. Okay, that's one way to do it. Now we've got literally thousands of families who've planned ahead, who say, No, I've paid in. I would like a little bit of payback on my taxes. Doing that planning so that, well, if when we need long-term care, which is according to longtermcare.gov, don't believe me, go to the source material. Long-term, that's where I go. Longtermcare.gov says on average, if you're 65, you have a 70% shot of needing, on average, 3 years of skilled care. Not necessarily in a nursing home, but, at-home care and assisted, all those things. It's right there on the website. That's when you're 65. Do you think it goes up when you get older? Maybe. Just possibly, right? And you have a 20% chance of needing 5 years or more care. Well, that's how you go broke, especially in an environment where we have fewer nurses than ever, right? I mean, what was it? So, and I can't give you the site on this one because I don't remember where I saw it, but you can Google it. I mean, hold my feet to the fire. I'm fine with it, right? It's like 400,000 nurses have quit the profession. It's tough being a nurse. It's really tough being a nurse or being a caregiver. And so you get people that you'd rather not being caregivers or being caregivers. Because why? Because the money's so good. That's why. Not that they have a heart for it necessarily, although lots do, but some don't. Some do, some don't. And you get people, when the stress goes up, you got people who went into nursing to be care providers, not to be overstressed and everything else. It's a tough thing. But we've got more and more older people. America is getting older because you didn't have 6 kids like your parents did, or 8 in my case, right? I only had 4. My brothers and sisters, I think one of them had 3, but 1 or 2 or whatever. Okay, people make choices. Your kids make choices, different choices than you made. You made different choices than your parents made. This is why, right? There's not as many people giving care as there are who need it, proportionately, as used to be, right? And so the prices are going up. And so people are going broke sooner than they used to because care is so expensive. Well, the answer is Medicaid. Medicaid's the government program like Medicare, like Social Security, like everything else. You paid in. But for some reason, and I think it's political, they make you go broke before you qualify for this one. And so everyone, not everyone, far from everyone, but there are folks out there who are like, oh, I don't deserve it. Really, I don't get it. And I don't, you've heard me bang that gong before, okay? I've talked about that. But there's 2 more things that are going on as we speak that are time limited and are designed, I think, primarily for folks in the middle class. They're not primarily for the wealthy. And one of them is the this thing, the Camp Lejeune thing. So for years and years and years, Camp Lejeune, like most military bases, had a dry cleaning shop, had a laundry. And unfortunately, the chemicals from the laundry leached into the water table, and people were drinking diluted, right? But they were drinking those chemicals. As a consequence, there's all kinds of horrific health consequences to drinking. Guess what? If you drink dry cleaning fluid, it ain't good for you. No surprise there. And Congress just passed, not as part of the $750 billion, but in a separate appropriation, is my understanding. Anyway, they finally passed a bill to compensate the people who've been injured by it, right? And yet, I talk to veterans. I'm a vet, right? If I had the cancers and all the rest of the horrible things that happen when you drink dry cleaning fluid, 30 years on, I'd be pissed. And government said, hey, we should have made you drink the dry cleaning fluid, and however diluted, and now we'll take care of you. And I got people who are like, oh no, that's okay. Oh no, that's okay. What are you talking about? I mean, you're the one who doesn't have a prostate anymore. You're the one who's, pooping in a bag and, got all these other health consequences. It's like, and you've been, and this is the other thing. The folks I've talked to who are suffering these health consequences, they're all working people. They were Marines, for crying out loud, or Army guys who trained down there. They had the aviation center down there. You had a lot of guys who were down there for classes and stuff. But that's a time-limited thing. It's not going to go on forever, right? if you're going to get compensation for it, Congress said, yeah, we probably should have made the guys drink that stuff. We probably should have figured that one out a little bit earlier, And yet we have people who don't feel, despite the horrific diseases they're suffering, it's like, yeah, well, that's okay. I don't understand that one. I mean, it seems to me that when your health has been ravaged and the government finally says, yeah, it was our fault, we did it, here's some money, then you say, wow, I'm surprised, but thank you. I mean, how about that? The other thing is this, it's a COVID-related thing, and it has to do with small employers. Well, small, medium-sized employers. It's the employee retention tax credit. I had a conversation, well, I've had a couple conversations recently where, you're talking to business owners and it's like, yeah, well, we're okay. We survived it. We don't deserve the money. And it's like, what do you mean you don't? It's a tax credit, okay? It's the taxes it's very direct. It's the taxes you paid in, you get the taxes back, and into the future even, And so for a small business, typical small business, you're talking $400,000 of tax benefit. $400,000 you paid in. Now the government says, okay, you can have it back. Because through the COVID, you kept people employed. You didn't fire everybody. You didn't run away with tail between your legs. You made it happen. You kept people going in a very, very difficult time. And because you kept people going in a very, very difficult time, we're going to be giving you back. We're going to give you tax credit for the taxes you paid in. Why not? What's so horrible about that? And yet, we have folks who are like, oh, not for me. I don't understand why it's not for you. You see, it seems to me that part of the deal here is I'm going to pay in, middle-class folks, I'm going to pay in a hell of a lot more money than I'll ever see benefit back. But that's okay. That's okay, because there are people who are less fortunate, meaning people who don't work as hard as I do, people who didn't have the parents I did who instilled the work ethic and all those good reasons. And we're going to talk about luck next and good fortune. What does that mean? It means something very different to you than it means to other people. Let me promise you. We'll talk about that next. But it's like, well, I shouldn't get back from what I paid in. Again, not making sense of that. So we'll talk more about it. But those are three things: the ERTC, the Medicaid, and the Camp Lejeune thing. Those are three very obvious examples where you paid in, and middle-class people are saying, nah, that's okay. I don't need any. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm still David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. As I say, this is really about, most of what we do is making sure the middle class doesn't get screwed as badly as they have been, and and sometimes it can be tough because when the government takes as much as it takes from you, right? People get used to the idea that there is no payback. People get used to the idea, well, my relationship to the government is one in which they take stuff and tell me what to do, and I put up with it. That's my role. That's my relationship. I don't expect anything good. And the point is that whether it's the Camp Lejeune stuff, now there it's a money award, right? And if you've got the cancers and the other diseases and stuff that were caused by these volatile organic compounds that got into the water supply, it's not going to make you healthy again. It's not going to do that. There is no direct relief there, but it can, and the VA will pay, is paying the hospital bills and stuff like this. But this is compensation. This is, to make you as whole as dollars can, which they can't, but that's the idea. Okay, with the Medicaid, this is where. People say, well, I saved the money to pay for long-term care. And I say, yes, exactly. I would love for you to pay for your long-term care. Absolutely, absolutely love it. Pay for your long-term care. Pay for the extras. When you buy a car, you don't have to build your own roads Why not? Because you paid the gas tax and they build the roads for you. Yeah, potholes and everything. I get it. But, still, you don't have to go buy your own aircraft carrier because we did that in common. We did that together. And so because there are things that are available, and I'd like to give a shout out to Victor, who said it was a great show today. Yes, I agree. 100%. Anyway, thank you, Victor, for calling in. Love the encouragement. Anyway, let's get that base level of care that's provided for by the Medicaid. It's not a super duper level of care. It's expensive as hell. Yeah, it's $12,000 to $15,000 a month. You want a bed in a long-term care facility, a skilled nursing facility. If you're willing to go to assisted living, you're talking $6,000 to $8,000 per month. Okay. Well, and listen, if you want to blow all your life savings on that in a couple of years, well, fine. Who am I to stop you? But it seems to me that because you already paid in, because you've earned that, then let your family use the extra money that you get, right, to make that long-term care experience as good as it can be. And it's not a day at the beach. There's nothing happy about it. But there were special moments. I mean, I was so grateful to have my brothers and sisters too. So grateful to my sister just posted another picture of Dad eating a piece of cake, 3 years ago. And he liked his treats. I mean, that was the headache. Yeah, he liked his treats. He did. He liked to make them and he liked to eat them. And but he had a good life because he wasn't scraping after every penny, because when Mom spent her time in long-term care, he didn't lose everything. You think about what would that have been like for him if he was on the razor's edge of economic. He lived for 12 years after Mom passed, 10 years. Anyway, long time after Mom passed. If he had lived those 10 years in poverty, right? Well, his kids would have come to rescue, whatever. But, there's a pride thing involved with that too. So Mom got the best care. We didn't go broke. Dad lived on, and enjoyed his life. Okay? Because he paid in for 40 years, 50 years. He paid in, So he got something back on top of the base level that Medicaid would provide for. How did that become a bad thing? Similarly with this, with the retention tax credit. It's out there. It's unknown, apparently, by many folks, but it's an extremely useful thing. And you think, well, I'm doing fine, right? And this is the thing, that I'm doing fine right now. I don't really need that money right now. They just spent $750 billion that they don't have. Who do you think they're hiring? Oh, here's one thing you're getting for your $750 billion, 87,000 IRS agents. Who do you think they're coming after? Jeff Bezos? Huh? Warren Buffett? You think they're going after those guys? No. You thinking they're going after people at the other end of the economic spectrum? No. You're the one in the crosshairs. You're the one they're coming after. All right? Business owners, people who employ other, that's what this is for. People with small business, people with bigger business, there's a limit on the number of employees you can have. But it's still a very useful, beneficial thing. And you're entitled to it because why? Because they wrote the law that way. You didn't write the law, they wrote the law. And people are, no, I don't think so. It's like when the hammer comes down, when the guillotine falls, and it's going to fall on you, when you get mugged, right? You're going to wish you had a little bit of cash cushion that they were giving you back in the day. That's what I'm saying. They cut it off early. You know why they cut it off early? This program was supposed to run through the fourth quarter of last year, of 2020. They cut it off early because no one was going for it. They're like, well, we're putting the money out there, but nobody seems to want it. Well, now you've got an opportunity for the next 26 months, 25 months to get it back. And you're going to need it back because if they're going to spend $750 billion and not buying a single aircraft carrier with that, right? You're going to need the money. Instead, they're buying IRS agents with it, 87,000 of them. Now, they won't quite fill the big house. I understand that. But it would fill Notre Dame Stadium, I think. What, isn't it 85,000 in there with some people waiting in line outside? So there you go. And then finally with the Camp Lejeune thing. Or did I start with that? Anyway, 3 things that affect middle-class people. The Camp Lejeune thing. If you trained down there, if you were a Marine down there, what have you. The idea that you would not take the benefit is insane to me. Okay? All right? It just doesn't make sense. And you don't have to be anything less than super patriotic and still take it, seems like to me. The second is the ERTC, the Employee Retention Tax Credit, right? They're not going to apologize when they tax you out of business. But if you could get a little bit of your own back, a little bit of what you paid in back to help you weather that storm, I don't get why you wouldn't. Besides, they're going to tax it away from you anyway. You know, the money that you get, it's taxable. So it's like, here, we're giving you $100,000. Oh, by the way, we want $25,000 of it back because we're going to tax you on it. Okay, thanks for nothing. Right? You got that issue. And then finally, and you've heard me bang the gong on this one, why middle-class people go broke in long-term care is a total mystery to me. I don't get it. Unless you didn't know about it, and now you do know about it. You don't have to. You can plan ahead. Easiest thing you can do, cheapest thing you can do. You can wait till the last minute. More expensive, not as effective, but you can do it. So you don't go broke, so you get the care that you, your loved one, needs, and so your surviving spouse isn't impoverished. That's what we're doing here. Okay, you've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm still David Carrier. Oh, and you know, we've got those, still have those ads up about the workshops. No oatmeal raisin. Oh, we've been doing oatmeal raisin cookies for months now. Like a year, I think. We got to get new ads. But come to a workshop. I mean, ask your questions in person. It's fine. No problem. We do have the oatmeal raisin cookies, and we're doing them all the time. Just go to the website, davidcarrierlaw.com, and you see where we're having them. We're doing them every week. No excuses. Been listening to the David Carrier Show.